Hey Jessica, it's Katie. I thought rather than writing out instructions, it would be easier to show you how to make the CDs and what goes into them. I pulled this one here because you should be able to see definitely here how there's this extra adhesive. You'll come across some to where you'll have to trim it down, which is really straightforward and simple. You just take and you follow the line of the paper with scissors and you can trim the adhesive off. Something I talked to you about before in terms of the need for double stick tape. There will be some edges where the adhesive doesn't quite come based on the length of the adhesive. So there are a couple options you can do. You can either purchase double stick tape, a little bit of glue, or what I did with this one is the excess that was trimmed off of this side over here fits and works perfectly as a use for an adhesive over here. So the first step was what I just showed you, which was the trimming. If there's any excess adhesive, there's a lot of the ones that are already prepped already, and I made sure there's adhesive on all of them. So all you have to do is make sure that they're trimmed around the edges. You don't have to worry about these tops and bottom edges because those will get cut off later. So just make sure that these two side edges are what are trimmed flush with the edge. And this is the exact width that you'll need it to be. So then, after you've taken and trimmed down the adhesive, the next thing that you'll do is you'll take it to a paper cutter, which I've got right here. Alright, so then after you've made sure to trim off the excess edge, you're going to bring it to a cutting board like this. There are little lines that you'll be able to see when you actually are holding these. I'm not sure how well they'll come over on the camera, but those are the lines that you trim them to. And what these will be is actually 5.5 inch square when you cut them down initially, because we'll be taking more off the top and bottom. So all you really have to worry about is just making sure that you cut these 5.5 inches, and there is a little excess that's in between, but that's no problem. So long as you remember to use those lines as a guide, you'll be fine. So because the paper has a slight curl, using a paper cutter like this, I like to flip it over so that the curl works to my benefit. So then it's 5.5, and see, we've got this nice trim down, the adhesive on the back, and then we'll just continue on and do that with these here. I then go over to the other edge and trim that down, and then I know, because of those guides, that it's 1/4 inch in from each side. So then the next measurement to where I cut it down is going to be just 1/4 inch off. And then I turn it around and polish it off, making the center section 5.5 inches square. Alright, so then take these, and we have our piece, which is the front cover, the back, and the inside piece. And you're going to turn that over. This piece, where you have your note to the people purchasing the CD, goes on the left-hand side. Because the edge here, this far edge, is the edge that doesn't have anything that gets cut down to, that's obviously what matches up with this edge here. And then, so long as those are flush and even, you are fine with the rest, so don't worry if it's off slightly from the top and the bottom, and just secure and press that down. This adhesive is really strong, so you can only do that once, otherwise it will completely rip the paper. There are several extra sets of paper though, so no worries. And then because of the thickness of the paper, it's really easy to then flip this here, and it'll fold right along that edge of the paper, and then you can unfold it. And the next section you do is the far right hand side, which is the one with all of the individual portraits of people. And again, it's this far edge here that you match flush with the outer edge. And the adhesive does have obviously that backing on it that tends to get stuck. So just make sure that the edge is flush, and then press down and secure it. And again, these top edges will be taken care of later, so no worries on those. And then the same goes here, where you can fold it over, and it'll fold right where it needs to fold. And then you can unfold it there. So then the last section we have is this middle section. This middle section, because if you remember we had to trim about 1/4 of an inch off of each side, that's roughly what the spacing is going to be between these two sections. So you need to make sure that they're centered, and you can do it by having either a ruler up at the top, and then you can just make sure the dimensions on each side of it are the same, or it usually has enough leeway to where you can just eyeball it and it's completely fine, and then it hits dead center pretty much 99% of the time. So then making sure to catch a part of the backing on the adhesive that it comes off. So and this is that. So then we take and we match it up center and press it down, and then the same as we did before, which is just use that edge as a new guide. You'll have your spines of the CDs just how they're supposed to be. And then fold. If it's off slightly, that just means you place the center piece off slightly. So this is how you take and put these pieces together. All of the CDs are already in the DigiTrays. They do need to be burned, but that should go. It takes about 3 minutes per CD, a little bit more since you have more files on your CD. And then you just do a little bit of a dab of epoxy on inside of the DigiTray or glue, and then you place the tray on there, and depending on the type of glue you use, there's a set time that you need. One last step actually before you do that DigiTray, I kind of jumped ahead of myself, is you have to take, and there's an excess of 1/4 of an inch on the bottom and on the top. So you'll take this back. It varies on some of the CDs because of how the paper is cut, but just so long as you make sure that the height, the final height, is 5 inches, so that make that the final height being 5 inches, then you'll be fine. So just take, trim 1/4 of an inch off, so that'll give you 5 1/4 inches height-wise, flip it around, line it up to the 5, trim it down, you've got 5 inches, and you've got your CD all set. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward and simple, and this should help you to be able to make all of the CDs.